So here's your kit lens, and here's your sensor. This is kind of neat because we don't really get to see these things every day. If you got the zoom on most of the time, you really don't have a reason to take this off. But if you ever do, here's your sensor. Here's your Super 35 capture device right here. And you don't want to take your lens off too much because you can accumulate dust and things on the sensor, which will create little flecks of black or white artifacts in your videos. And you'll have to touch those out in post-production. But occasionally you might have to take your lens off and use a very delicate sensor cleaning brush that's designed specifically to clean your sensor, or some canned compressed air to blow off the sensor. So it's nice to see it, be able to access it, understand what is in here, what's doing the work for you. And the same with your rear element on your lens. You may have to clean your contacts with some lens fluid, or you might have to clean the element at some point if it gets dirty, particularly if you've been in a dusty environment. One thing I want to say really quickly about cleaning a lens, now that we've got the UV on the front to protect your front element of this lens, once this is clean and you apply the clear protective filter, you shouldn't have to get in there and clean that element anymore. It'll stay clean because this environment is now sealed with the filter. But the rear element, if you're going to clean this, never apply cleaning solution directly to the lens. And there's one really good reason for that. This is just a piece of glass, and it has a little bit of a convex grind to it because it's an optical piece of glass, and we need to have that grind in order for this to be able to resolve and focus. But as a consequence of that, if you drop a dollop of lens fluid on this lens, it's going to run down into the workings of the lens, and it's going to create havoc inside with the oils and lubricants that are inside here. And there are also electronics inside these kit lenses, and you don't want to get fluid in contact with those, because once those circuits become energized, you're going to short out the zoom motor or the focus motor inside your lens. So if you ever have to clean the rear element of your kit lens, use a piece of lens cleaning tissue. Kim wipes are a great product that you can buy online from Film Tools in Burbank, California. You can also get Kodak lens paper and cleaning fluid. You can get Roscoe lens paper and cleaning fluid. You can buy all those things online. B&H has some nice generic lens cleaning kits that you can buy for relatively little money to clean your lenses with. But when you do that, apply the cleaning fluid to the tissue first, and then apply the tissue or the swab to the lens. Never apply the fluid directly to the lens. That's a no-no. So let's show you now how to build out your FS5 to accommodate a cinema lens. And I happen to have a Tokina 11-16 here now. And here's another thing that I want to remind you of. I'm doing this as a demonstration, but when you're on the set and you remove a lens, make sure you put the caps on it right away. And don't put the lens cap in your pocket. That's a rookie mistake, okay? Put the caps in your AKS bag or your set bag, and the minute you take your kit lens off, go ahead and replace all the caps to make sure that everything stays protected, okay? Here's our Cinema Zoom, our Tokina Cinema Zoom. Now, this is a Sony camera, so it has a Sony NEX, they call it NEX bayonet mount, or the Sony A mount. This is a specific bayonet for Sony brand products, lenses in particular, the Carl Zeiss line. We have a Tokina Cinema Zoom, so we have added an adapter to go from the flange on this lens, which happens to be Canon EF, or Canon autofocus, to Sony on this side. And this is an adapter that simply allows connectivity between this lens and this camera body, but it does not share any data with this Tokina Cinema Zoom, because this Cinema Zoom is not generating any particular data. This is a straight up optical photographic lens, whereas your Sony kit lens is transmitting metadata like focal length and f-stop to the camera, so the camera can enter that into the metadata of your video file. When you use a cinema lens on the Sony and you use what we call a dumb adapter to apply the lens to the camera, you no longer get any sort of data being transmitted from the lens to the camera. But that's neither here nor there. If you have a good camera assistant that keeps track of that information, you keep tabs of your exposures, your focal lengths, and so forth on your camera reports when you're shooting on set. I'm going to apply this adapter to this lens, and then I'm going to put this lens right on the camera, and I seat it in the flange, and then I'm going to turn it clockwise gently until I hear a click. And that's it. Now I know that that lens is attached. So I've sort of taken a shortcut here. I have a base plate already mounted on this camera. As you can see here, it has a place for a couple of rods. It also has the quick release plate from my tripod already mounted onto it. It's a simple device, really. I can show you. I take the camera off really quickly. But this is a really important part of the whole cinema lens picture, in that you need to be able to attach what we call iris rods to the camera product so that we can attach things like the matte box, which hold our cut glass filters. So here's the base plate. And as you can see, it's got a receiver for the tripod plate. It has two receivers for our iris rods, and it has our means of connecting to the actual tripod itself. So this plate and this plate are actually the same style of connectivity, so that you can go directly to your tripod if you want to, just like this, or you can apply your base plate like so, wait for the click, and then tighten it down. And we can attach accessories now to the camera itself as a unit. Okay, and I've got some iris rods right here. These are Zacuto rods, so you can see they have a thread on one end. Basically, they're designed to where you can link them together, and we can make longer rods out of these by just screwing them together. But this would get us only one rod today, so I need to separate these. For the matte box on the Sony camera and this particular zoom, I only need a set of short rods. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to slide them into our receivers there, and we're going to make sure they're even. And we're going to tighten them down with these little bench dogs right there. You got a couple on either side. These lock down and tighten the rods in place so the rods don't slide out. And then, then we have our matte box. This is a matte box made by Century. It's very similar to a number of different products out on the market by Vocus. This is a professional matte box. It has some nice features that we'll talk about in a little bit. And what it has on the back is a flared lens hood and a filter thread adapter. This flared portion is 82 millimeter accessory, and this is a 77 mil lens. So what I need is a 77 to 82 millimeter, what we call a step-up ring, okay? And that's a step-up ring. And it goes from a larger 82 down to a smaller 77 millimeter accessory. I apply that to the flared lens hood, like so. And then I apply it to our cinema zoom, just like the round filter we put on your kit lens screws right on the front. And then this is designed to lock into the back of the matte box, and then the matte box locks onto the rods, and that's why we have the iris rods on our camera. The iris rods are also going to accommodate our focus assist, and sometimes when we have larger lenses that are a bit heavy, we want to take stress off the lens mount, so we'll put on an accessory that supports the lens in the front called a lens bridge. But today, for this small zoom, we don't need to go through all of that. So we're just going to mount this guy on our rods, and we're going to slide it into place like so, and then we're going to lock it down like so. And what we have now is our Tokina Cinema Zoom and our matte box, which holds 4x4 cut filters. And I'll show you what those look like right here. Pull out one of these trays. Okay, and I already have a clear protective filter in my filter tray. This is called an optical flat, and it's a lot like the UV filter that we put on your kit lens a moment ago. But this one is optically clear. This doesn't even reduce UV haze from your images. This is simply a clear glass protective filter. We use this for a variety of things on set. I use it as a protective filter just for the lens, but if we're doing stunt work, for instance, and I'm worried about debris hitting the front of my lens, I'll put an optical flat in the matte box, because at $50 for a 4x4 optical flat, it's a lot cheaper if this gets broken by a piece of flying debris than it is for me to replace my cinema zoom at $2,000. So I always put an optical flat in the matte box if nothing else, and then I can remove it if I need to stack other filters in the box, like correction filters or polarizers or color effects filters or so forth. And they just drop in to the holder like so. With there's a little recessed tray here, and my 4x4 cut glass just mounts right in the tray like so, and then I drop the little retaining clip, and that guy's in there pretty good. And then we can mount it right in the matte box. There's 2 slots. You can see these access from the top, and we just slide that guy right in there. And there's a little indent to let you know that the filter is centered. Okay, so that's our optical flat in our Century matte box with our Tokina Cinema Zoom mounted to our Sony FS5. And if we wanted to, we could add our follow focus. Pretty easy to do. Just pop this guy in here, lock it down on our rods, and we'll line it up with our lens. Push it into place and lock everything down. And now we have our follow focus installed as well. Okay, now with our Sony FS5 and our new Cinema Zoom and our follow focus, we are now ready to start using 4x4 cut filters. And when we come back from our break, we'll take a look at some of those. We'll talk about what their value is and show you how to put them in the matte box. And we'll take a look at some examples of the cut filters on some B-roll. Okay, let's take a break, and we'll be back in a few.